What do you do when your students are reading informational texts or preparing for a research assignment and they come across conflicting information from different sources? Or what do you do when you have that standard that you have to cover that asks you to analyze 2 or more texts that provide conflicting information on the same topic and identify where the texts disagree on matter of fact or interpretation? It's like, where do you even begin? Well, today we're going to share some practical strategies to empower you as the teacher, whether you need to teach this tricky standard or you realize that, you know what, it's time to guide your students through the maze of all the information that's available to them and help them become even stronger critical thinkers. So when students are bombarded with information during a Google search as they conduct research for any school project, they really do need to have a basic understanding of what conflicting information is so that they know how to choose a quote or a statistic that is real, that is believable. So some things that you'll want to consider reviewing with your students are the following. Why does information conflict sometimes? Have students identify shared details among texts. Have students identify conflicting details among texts. Consider perspective, bias, agenda. Evaluate source credibility. Cross-reference information. And ultimately, use their critical thinking. And that is a lot. However, knowing that those are some of the main topics that students need to know about before they can even begin to effectively analyze conflicting information is going to make front-loading them with the skills that they need a whole lot easier. So I want to break it down with ideas for how you can teach students these skills. So first, students need to understand what conflicting information even is. They need to understand that at its basic, this is when different sources say different things about the same topic or idea. And it can make it tricky to know which one of these is true or which one of these is correct. Now imagine how helpful it's going to be to explain to students that information can conflict because of different perspectives, limited knowledge, personal biases, agendas, an evolving understanding of a topic. Then what if you could provide an example of each of those for students to discuss? So for example, for different perspectives, you can ask students to imagine that a person has risked her life to save a rabbit. You could explain to them that they might find different opinions from journalists about this person's actions, right? Some might see her as brave while others are going to see her as foolish. And that's going to lead to different descriptions about the same exact event. Now, once students have a better grasp on why information can conflict, they're going to be more critical readers as they research and hopefully start to question or analyze the validity of the things that they read. So students might be ready to find the most accurate information among the conflicting information that they come across. And once they're there, a way that students can do this is when reading 2 sources of information on the same topic, you want to tell them that their first job is to identify which details the 2 sources share. And those details, those are most likely to be true when they are agreed upon between writers. Now, after you explain that to students, then they get to practice with it, right? You can't just tell them they got to go practice with it. So what you can do is you can give students 2 paragraphs on the same topic and make sure that some details are the same and that some details are different. And then you can have students identify and discuss the details that are shared. Now, after you discuss those, you want to have students identify and discuss the details that are different, right? Or that conflict within both articles. Now, ChatGPT is great to help you come up with these paragraphs. Just tell ChatGPT to give you this information, right? Write 2 paragraphs for me that have some conflicting information, some information that's the same on X topic, right? And ChatGPT will spit something out for you. Now, after you have students do those 2 things, the next thing that you want to do with them is possibly a mini lesson on now thinking about, okay, perspective, bias, agenda. And you can do this by examining URLs of websites. So for example, a website that's outdooradventure.com might have positive details to share about time spent outside, while a website called techconnectonline.com, that's going to focus on the benefits of spending time connecting with technology, perhaps instead of in nature. Right? So you might even want to have students visit 2 websites that you find are appropriate for your class, but you can let them dig further into that. What are the biases? What are the perspectives that a website might have? by letting students click around the website to get a feel for what the website promotes. What do they value? What do they sell? What is their mission? All of that stuff. And once students complete that task, it's important to have a discussion on evaluating source credibility. Students need to know that when they read information, they got to make sure that it's a reliable and trustworthy source. And this is especially true when they are getting conflicting information from sources. So in addition to checking for a source's bias or agenda, students can also look for the following information in a source. What is the author's background? Who's the publisher of the website? What is the date of publication? Who are the sources? Who are the references? And again, it might be a good idea to give students 2 different ChatGPT created articles. You can make up a title, an author, a publication date, etc. For those articles, and then make this information more credible in one article than in the other. So for example, in one article, you might use a fake name for the author like Bigfoot Enthusiast, right? And have misspelled words or things like that. So we're trying to help students establish and understand credibility when doing that part of the activity. Now, the last thing that you can do with this lesson is wrap things up by showing students how to cross-reference information. Now, this means comparing information from multiple sources to check for consistency, accuracy, and reliability. And this involves looking over different details or pieces of evidence to see if they match up. Do they create a complete and true picture? And this involves using more than one source. They want to check for similar facts and details. They want to question differences, ask critical thinking questions, use common sense, right? And apply the things that they learned in those lessons that you had done before. Now, a lesson like this is not only going to help students assess the credibility of various sources and arguments, but honestly, it's necessary in the digital age that we live in, where there is information overload and it's often contradictory. So doing a lesson all about analyzing conflicting information is going to empower your students to make more informed decisions about what they read as they examine different viewpoints, as they hone their problem-solving skills, and ultimately refine their research techniques. And even better is it's going to set them up for success in the future, since it really promotes responsible citizenship, prepares students to, engage in informed discussions with others about information that they come across, whether that's online, in a newspaper, on the news, and especially on social media. So hopefully this idea helped you. You can start to implement this in class with your students. And if it did, make sure that you hit subscribe where you're watching this video. And we ask that you also share it with other middle school ELA teachers that you think that it would benefit as well.